and gentlemen, let's welcome to the second edition Smart Meter Summit 2022, Day 2. A quick recap about Day 1. Day 1, we have covered 6 presentations and 3 panel discussions, a very brief discussions on MDMS, HES, head-end system. After a very amazing response from the audience and panelists, we are having a very high expectation for day 2 as well. So let's see what day 2 looks like. Today, we're going to cover 5 presentations and 3 panel discussions. We're going to have a deep discussion on smart meter billing, communication technology, smart meter operation center. And now I'm very glad to welcome our first keynote speaker who are going to have a presentation on Discom's perspective. Ladies and gentlemen, we have Mr. Sanjeev Sinha, President IT and Digitization, India Power Corporation Limited, IPCL, an engineer MBA with about 30 years of experience in multi-industry domains in India and USA. He have held responsibility in core engineering, management, supply chain, IT infrastructure, quality, etc. I have also have senior experience as Asia Pacific head and also has a board member. He takes life as a journey and not as a destination. Well, ladies and gentlemen, currently driving digitization efforts of the group and implementing disruptive technologies like IoT, BI, analytics, etc. So let's welcome Mr. Sanjeev Sinha. Over to you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you for that wonderful introduction. And thank you, Aayera, for inviting me. And I also welcome the audience who have spared this time aside for these presentations. I'm sure we will do justice to your time and try to give you more information which can be of great use to you. So let me share my screen, and moderator, if you can please confirm that it is showing up.
Meanwhile, the audiences who are watching right now, if you have any questions, you can put this question during the session so that at the end of the session, the speaker will have all the list of questions and he'll be able to answer immediately after the session ends. Yes, sir, we are able to see the screen.
Okay.
Yes. Over to you, sir. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you. So we have had a great deal of discussion yesterday regarding the smart meters, and we know that there is a huge implementation of smart meters which is going on in the country, which is actually great, moving in the right direction. We are becoming digitally very active in the years to come. But I thought we could just take a step back. We have always seen smart meters as a as having a power systems, communication interface, or microcontroller. So we have been hearing about these so much. But let's take a step back and look at what the distribution company and the consumers have to say. We have heard a lot of implementation issues, a lot of difficulties and pluses in implementations. But if we have to really derive the benefits from the smart meters, we need to quickly see where we actually stand. It has been well accepted as a great step forward in terms of benefit for both the consumers and the distribution companies. But we need to quickly take a step back and see where we stand and where we are actually looking at in terms of the benefits and even passing on these benefits to these stakeholders. So instead of looking at smart meters as a device, I thought we could just look at it, take a step back, and then look at it what it is. So smart meters, as we know, other than being a device, we see as a distribution company that it is actually a data tool for us. So it provides certain data for us. And the onus of the implementation of smart meters depends on how efficiently and how better you can use these data which is generated by these smart meters and giving out to a central repository. So this is an example of an IoT, Internet of Things. Okay, smart meter is an example of an IoT. We have had discussions on IoT also. So let me just clarify, it is one of the instances. And one of the objectives which smart meter is trying to fulfill is that the utilities are being transformed into information centric enterprises, which it was not earlier. So the information, there was a huge information gap between the various stakeholders in the entire chain. So what we are trying to fulfill here as a smart meter implementation is that the information becomes available to all the stakeholders in an organized way so that they can take the full benefit from here. So what it means is that we capture information from smart meters and then translate that into a much better customer experience. Customer is finally the endpoint, and the whole success or failure of smart meter depends on whether we are able to improve the customer experience in that way. We are a Discom ourselves, and we are constantly looking for ways to implement or to pass on these benefits to these customers so that they can benefit most. So this also leads to many opportunity for several business use cases there for digital transformation. The entire country across all industries are moving into the digital transformation, and utilities this is the way to actually move in that direction. So smart meters then are giving out that information, the data, which is waiting to be used in a most appropriate way. But again, smart meter is not the end of the story. It is actually a part of a much larger picture, and that larger picture is the smart grid. So what do we mean by that smart grid when we talk about that larger picture here? So let's look at what we are trying to achieve using this tool and what are we trying to do with this smart grid. So smart grid, by smart grid, what we mean is that we are trying to build up an ecosystem here, a smart grid ecosystem, which will have information coming from the various sections of the entire cycle into a central repository. So for example, the generation sends out information about generations, transmission sends out information regarding the transmission, distribution about the power it is getting from there, regarding the demand that it already knows about. The consumer gets to know about the various aspects of it. So putting all these various kind of information into a central repository is that ecosystem which we are trying to arrive at, to reach, so that the generation then knows about distribution knows enough about transmission, or the customer knows everything about his expectations, so whether he is going to get quality power at the right time. And so the entire demand information which distribution companies typically want to know in advance, all information will become available. So this is where we are trying to achieve. So smart meter is a small component of generating this kind of a data, putting it into a repository and using this data so that they can be used for the betterment of the entire cycle. So here the expectations from the Discom as well as the customers are multifold. Okay, they are expecting a complete change here from what it used to work earlier. They want everything to be prompted, and this is a very realistic expectation from all the stakeholders here. So for example, Discom would like to know the outages when it actually happens, and not when they receive a complaint about it. The customers don't want to make the complaint because they expect the Discom to know it beforehand, that okay, an outage has happened. What about the quality of power? Customer wants to know that the quality of power that they are receiving is absolutely right, and they can actually generate a report for to show the quality of the power. These are some of the expectations that they have. With newer power of sources like renewable coming up, many of the customers may actually have solar panels on their houses. They may want to use some, give out some to the grid. They are looking for ways for net metering here. And this information also should be available to the Discom that, okay, this consumer is not going to use 100% of the power supplied by them. All these information becomes available to a central repository from where they can draw the necessary stakeholders, can draw the necessary reporting systems, and then see what they are looking for. That is the whole idea regarding this ecosystem. But the good thing is with the implementation of the smart meters here, we are gradually, though slowly, moving towards building up a smart grid ecosystem here. So uh, depends on how much is the implementation to what it is. There are other areas like SCADA implementation or many IoT devices at DT for health monitoring, which is also contributing in making it a smart grid here, not merely smart meters, but all together is actually making this entire system more efficient and and definitely more better so that the customer is able to derive the more benefits there. So let's look at how we have evolved, we as a Discom. So we initially had, analog meters when we gave them. We gradually moved them to the digital meters here. And from digital meters, we actually moved to the AMR meters. AMR meters, which are, which are capable of one-way communication to the Discoms there. So, that is the time when the remote remote reading of the meters actually started. And what we are currently experiencing right now with the implementation of smart meter is the next stage, where the AMI meters have been implemented and there's a two-way communication established with the consumers. However, the concern is that many of the areas we have seen the AMI meters being still used as an AMR meters. Okay, so if you have to derive the full benefit, AMI meters is a two-way communication, gives out far more data than AMR used to give, which used to be a one-way communication. So the data available is far more now. So, reading of the data, which usually is required for once a month, is, AMR is good enough. We don't need an AMI for that, right? So for AMI, it is far more beneficial to use it for many other benefits than what we have seen so far. So I think even though we are in large number of smart meters getting implemented, the benefits accrued are, I think, at an initial stage because we are still at a learning stage. We have not yet passed on all the benefits to the stakeholders. We have passed on just a part of the benefits yet. And I think many of the Discoms are working very hard to find out, all various ways to implement it even further. And the journey has begun. So this journey will take them to the next stage of maturity. But that's where we actually are right now. The next stage, which is the AMI meters in the SCADA integrated, we still have, we haven't seen too many here, but the SCADA has its own set of sensors which controls this entire thing. But when it comes to the smart meter implementation, which we have seen here, it is here the stage 4 that we see here, where the implementation is actually happening. So I think we need to again relook at this implementation, because with the large number of smart meters coming in, we have large volume of data which is getting generated on an hourly, on a daily basis. And the important thing is to recognize them and make sure that this is converted into a business benefit here. So I think that's the area that we need to actually look at. So let's look at then how we can actually look and use these data for the betterment of the stakeholders. So let's see how the consumers can actually benefit here. So the consumers, once these data which are captured from the smart meters, we need to give them a good visibility into the energy use data there, the consumption pattern, the billing pattern. They are expected to have a complete visibility. After all, it's their data, it's their consumption, it's their billing. So they need, instead of having a once a month kind of a bill, which they keep receiving it, bill will only come once, but the data they should be able to, or their own usage information, they should be able to see on a regular basis at any time during the month, not necessarily just once a month. This is one basic expectation that all consumers have. If this has happened, we are in an age where the e-commerce company, the banking, we have such high level of visibility on what the consumers are actually doing it. So And the same consumers are now expecting the same from the utility companies also, for higher visibility. So that is one of the very, very basic expectation from them. And I know many of the Discom companies in their mobile app, in their online platform, they are adding up more and more reports to increase this visibility. So some of them have actually gone ahead. So that's very heartening to know. So, but of course, many others are still picking up. But I think we are moving in that direction, though very slowly. Some other expectations from the smart meter data by the customers would be like the event information, for example, the power outage, the restore events. Now they want this to be automated, and that's a very fair expectation. If the power goes, we have seen that in the let's say the broadband. When our broadband goes down, they don't really expect us to log a complaint. That stage is past. Now we actually get to know that there is an outage and what is the time of restoration. Same is the expectation here. The power goes down. Instead of complaining, they expect the Discom to immediately know it on their own, because the smart meter will trigger that information to the Discom, and they will start taking corrective action and give them an estimate of restoration automatically. It may be on the SMS, maybe on any other, maybe on email, but that is an expectation from them. Okay, I can see a screen which says participants can now see this screen. I'm assuming it was already visible earlier. Okay, so power quality events, that's one of the other areas that the consumers expect.
So it was actually visible very much on the screen.
Okay, thank you very much for that clarification. Yeah, the power quality events, the voltage, are they getting power quality events? What about the device burnout that occasionally consumers face? Is it because of some poor quality power, or is it due to something else? So all these information they want to actually see, making sure that the quality of power is good. Meter tamper event is something that the Discom is very interested in knowing, but the meter actually belongs to the consumer. Even the consumer wants to know if there has been a tampering event there. So all these information they are expecting to know. And with the smart meter data, it becomes a responsibility of the Discom to actually give it to the consumers. The prepaid users, although smart meter is not a prerequisite to having prepaid users, the number of prepaid users is going up because of some major decisions taken by some of the Discom to convert many of the low value customers to prepaid users. And it's not really a prerequisite to have a smart meter for prepaid consumers. But the better practice is to have a smart meter in place, because then you can add many other methods of using them, like online methods. You can give them recharging using credit cards, give them a real, the balance, real-time balance. All this information can be made available on their mobile phones, to the prepaid customers. So all these, if these value adds have to be added, the good practice is to have the smart meters on for prepaid customers also. Some of the, we have a very interesting scenarios called what if analysis, and where the consumer typically wants to know that, let's say, if he wants to add another set of air conditioner to his house, he wants to know how much the billing will actually go up. And such scenarios, when it has actually not happened, we call it as a what if scenarios. Whether he needs to apply for an increased load for his house. In many cases, we as a Discom, we have seen that many of the consumers apply for higher load, even though they don't need it, because the additional load that they have, the current load will actually take it. The current capacity can take it. Still, they apply for it because of this lack of information. On the other hand, we have consumers who need it and don't apply for it. So we have scenarios for both. So giving a what if scenarios right on the online or the mobile application, using this data there, can give them a realistic picture whether they need to apply or not. It's just an example here. That how something like a what if analysis using this data can actually help them here. Net metering I have already talked about, where because today's consumers have already become producers also. So there is a need for net metering because they don't use all the power from the grid. They want to use some of their own generated power from the solar panels on their rooftop, and some they want to give it back into the grid. So net metering is something that they are looking for. But these are some of the areas where the consumers can actually benefit. And again, I state that it is the responsibility of the Discom to use them to make sure that these benefits actually are passed on to the consumers so that they can benefit. At the same time, of course, the consumer also needs to look at how, I'm sorry, Discom also needs to look at how this can benefit them also. So let's look at how they can actually benefit from it. So one of the expectation that we have from the implementation of the smart meter is that we need the smart meter data to be aggregated to a central repository. This is very often a case because we have MDM, meter data management, which is actually capturing all the data and keeping it here. So MDM is the central repository here, but then MDM is not good enough because you need the billing information, which typically is there in the ERP, the billing and the collections information, which is there in the ERP. So therefore, the ERP and MDM together constitute that central repository, and it may be worthwhile to have a separate data warehouse where both these data sources can give data for better analytics of usage of these data. So such a data repository will lead to distribution operation analytics. So essentially what we are talking is using this data for data analytics for the betterment of the Discom operations. So distribution operation analytics is one area, outage, quality systems. We have distribution transformer level also, the various assets. Their health monitoring can be used here, essentially not just smart meters, but IoT devices have typically been used more because there are smart meters can measure the electrical parameters, but the IoT have capability of measuring non-electrical parameters also, for example, temperature. So IoT has also been used in at DT level, and their health is constantly being available on dashboards for the engineers to actually see. So that's another area that you can do. So various analytical report almost at a real time is available for them. You couple it up, top it up with some alerts, and the engineers will know exactly what's happening. Any temperature shooting up is a cause of concern. You should get an alert, so that they can take rectification action and not wait for an outage. So that's the way actually forward. Consumer data, for example, now the Discom will have access to the consumer data. They can do some load research analytics, not only for the past, but have a predictive place in place. They will know in advance how much is the load coming up at every DT level. The demand response analytics they will see during office hours. Yes, the manufacturing units are using it more. They will know the demand much better. Revenue data is another area, where it comes to the energy theft, the analytics that can be used there. And I have seen some of the, at least in one case, I have seen this area has been worked and the analytical reports are available in a very efficient way here. Revenue modeling is another area, but typically revenue modeling is something that many of the discoms, they use it to maximize the revenue because they have all the information here. The analytics can actually give them the area for optimization. So they can have various models in place where they can look for the revenue modeling area. Similarly, just in line with the revenue modeling, there is another area called energy efficiency analytics. Now, typically, many of the HT customers are looking for energy efficiency analytics here because they have very high consumption of data and they're always looking for ways to automate it, to optimize it, and they actually depend on the distribution company to provide them that kind of information. This may involve at HTN multiple smart meters for that matter, or so that the various sections of the manufacturing unit, the data is available. The more the data, the richer the data, the more the reports are available. So that's the whole thing. Right now, we are implementing at a consumer end, one for each consumer usually, But for HT, it may make sense to actually have multiple smart meter within their manufacturing unit to analyze their power consumption in various divisions, various sections, and various times of the day, which can actually lead to an energy efficiency analytics. Discom can also use the customer segmentation here, which is another huge area which is completely untapped here. Okay, so these are some of the ways the data can be used by Discom for the consumption for the consumers and for themselves. So what is it that they should be doing then in that way? So some of the ways, and I compiled this from taking a lot of feedback from the other Discoms as well as us. We are also implementing 3.5 lakh smart meters right now. But we are also looking at optimizing or maximizing the usage of these things. So they need to focus on to build systems to manage large volume of event data, both real time and batch mode. So this capacity is required. A lot of companies which can actually take care of this. There is a need to build up a data analytics team, which will have the logical and statistical techniques, it will help identify the right events there, and correlate these statistical findings from the smart meter data with the various conditions, like events, business related. And once we have enough data for a long period of time, they can use predictive modules to build the predictive analytics so that the users know enough information in advance. It is possible to even know in advance which DT is likely to fail. So it can go to that extent, but I think we are still far off. But as we build up these things, as we move up the maturity ladder in these areas, this is the area that we think in the years to come, we will actually lead here. So there is a need to build a data management capability within the organization. So that's very important because we have large volume of data coming in from the smart meters, large number of smart meters, and therefore the large volume of data coming here. So we are talking about in the years to come, 250 million. You can imagine the kind of volume that these are generating, right? Will generate at that time. Even the few million that we have completed, we will still getting a lot of data there. Only a very, very small usage has been seen so far. That's where we have to move. The consumption data has to move from this, what we call as a meter to cash process, to a critical enterprise asset. So this data is the critical enterprise asset. So we have actually moved from a once a month data to 15-minute data now. So this is just waiting for usage more and more, and we should see a lot of benefits accruing in the next few years to come. So that's all I had. Thank you very much again for giving me this opportunity, and I'm happy to take questions if any.
So the questions have already been shared on your chat box. So can you please have a look? Or should I read out the question for you?
No, I'm able to do it. Just give me 1 second. I will pause the share and then go into the remote chat. Okay, so one question says, what about standardization of the technology? Is it better for utilities to choose their own smart meter solution rather than adopting an industry-wise approach? I think this, we have, the architecture of smart meter to head-end system to meter data management. This used to be very specific to a smart meter earlier. So today we have moved to a stage when we have HES, which is independent of the smart meters. We have MDM, which is independent of HES and smart meters. So we have reached a stage when this kind of standardization is already happening, and each component is becoming independent of each other, and therefore we can move in that direction. But the crucial point is that all the data which is captured in whichever architecture, whichever way you want to use it, you must be able to capture all the data which is there, and you should be able to use them, just like I have mentioned a few of them here. I think that is the critical point here.
Mr. Sanjeev Sinha?
Yes. Am I audible?
Yes, sir, you're very much audible. Can you read the questions?
No, it's not visible, but let me just give me a moment. I'm trying to remove my screen here. Yes, now it is visible here.
All right, sir.
Okay, so due to technology changes, what consumers go through in a cycle of installation, deinstallation, and reinstallation. One of the expectation from the consumer is that when they have the smart meter installed, the benefit should accrue immediately. Okay, so the process of installation, deinstallation, or reinstallation, which typically happens when the old meter is taken off and a smart meter is put in, this is a slightly painful process for them because this one-time activity has to be taken up. So there is a lot of expectations by the consumers that okay, they should accrue these benefits. One of the things, and these are the expectations which has not been entirely met by Discom immediately. It takes time for them to actually start seeing those benefits. So which is why I mentioned in my last slide that they should have a data management and data usage facility in place earlier. They should have it first before actually implementing the smart meters there. Because with implementation of smart meters, the data starts coming immediately. We don't have the mechanism to use that data immediately, the customer is likely to be frustrated. And they will probably, even oppose the installation of smart meters. So they go through this process. Let's appreciate that, okay, they have gone through this process, and now let's find a way to pass on the benefits to them. There can be one way that we can handle this is, we can have a training session whenever the installation happens. We can tell them that, okay, you have a new smart meter coming in your house, and these are the additional benefits that you start getting it right away. So that may be just a communication issue, because we know the benefits, the consumer may not. So, and consumer does not see it immediately. So there is a communication issue that needs to be taken care of.
So thank you so much. There are a few more questions, but we are running short of time. So we're going to send you an email. So thank you, sir. It was a wonderful session. Thank you.
Thank you.